Hello everyone, my name is Corazar, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. We are back on the world on, looks like it's New Year's Eve. It's December 9th, and Bert here is ready to celebrate. Look at his hat. He's decorated the whole house with lupins. Yep, lupins. We are ready to freeze, apparently. Love that. Very strange. Anyway, folks, we are here in our bedroom after the last episode that we built our little bedroom and we speckled the wall with little decorative leaves and covered, well, didn't cover, but we put a couple crystals up for decoration. And we built this little wardrobe that, well, it has a bit of a problem. That it's kind of useless because of this situation. So we're going to take a minute here and we are going to just give this thing a spin so the door is sitting over here, and that way we can actually get to it and, you know, use it. Well, that was more of an ordeal than I was expecting it to be. And we've kind of ended up with a weird shadow going on here that might be due to this dirt on this side. Let's find out. No, it is not. Okay. Good to know. But we have a bit of weirdness going on here, and because of the direction and placement of this beam, we had to move our bed 90 degrees to right here, but that's okay. I think it works out otherwise pretty well. With that over and done, I think it's time to move on to today's topic, which is going to be this room right here. The Leopard helicopter, the Legolas Floppenbopter, the Lockheed Martin helicopter, the Leopard-Doctor-Octopus, the butterfly room. The butterfly room. Yep, that's the one. Butterflies. So, butterflies and lepidopterology are going to go in this room, and we're going to be a leopard doctor. So that is the plan, and I think we're going to tackle this a little bit differently than we did our bedroom, because I kind of talked through the bedroom build and walked you through it step by step. But I have a big list of 20 questions that you've all submitted, and I would like to answer your questions today. So I think what we'll do is we will do some prep for the room here, and then I will show you what we're going to build with. I will build while I answer your questions, and then afterward we'll talk about what we did. First of all, I do want to note that I am about to starve, so we're going to go ahead and get some food here real quick. Not there, apparently. Okay, stomach is no longer growling. So in this room, the stars of the show will be the butterflies that we display in cases. And so I don't think, because they're quite colorful, but they're also quite small, I don't think we want to get too crazy with the decorations in this room. I think we're going to keep it pretty simple, kind of like our bedroom, but I think I want to not have anything on the walls at this level. So we're not going to have any of these little leaves or anything else as far as decorations go. And then I think I want to have probably mostly just a simple mix of light and dark colors. That way, once we have a collection of butterflies, they will really pop. Additionally, since we are here and we've already done our bedroom, I think we're going to come through and we are going to put on facade on our bedroom and the outside of the leopard helicopter room. And we'll bring it out to about here, where we'll have this extra room, the bonus room I'm calling it at the moment. And we'll run it up to here, and then we will sort of figure out how to make this join once this room and its facade are done. Now you might be asking why I broke open this specific spot right here. Actually, I'm not quite done yet, because I want to break open this spot here and this spot here. And that's because I want to have an extra door from the house out into this sort of underground area we're going to have here. Because sure, having a door on the front and back of the house is great, and maybe even the side over there. But this side, I kind of figured we don't want to have to, like, wend our way through the house all the time if we're out in this direction to make it to our kitchen where our food is, or to other areas like our bedroom. So I figured we can come right in here, kitchen, or go to our bedroom really quickly and easily. So that's the plan. And in the morning, I'm going to go and get some materials we're going to use and lay them out, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll get started. Let's get to it. Okay, folks, good morning. We are back. And I spent the night cooking up some food. We have some fresh food up in here. And I also went and did a little bit of copper casting, so we are about out of nails and strips. But I have in here, in this box, in what will be our hallway eventually, I have what I think are just about all the things we need, or might need, for our build today. So my plan here is we are going to use some of these materials. So I want to use these materials in here for the room. We're going to use, I think, some aged wooden planks on the floor. And then we're going to use kind of an inverse of our room over here. We're going to have some oak lining the bottom, so some wainscoting. And then we'll have some limestone. And then I kind of think that I might want to work in some andesite into our build here too. And I might do like a little bit of a andesite trim thing or something. I'm thinking we will have a pair of probably redwood doors, although I'm going to withhold final judgment until after we get the entire thing on, the entire facade, because these might not work out with the design we have. I don't know yet. And for the outside of this part of the house, I want to use fire clay bricks. I think this will be a nice sturdy look, and because it's going to be probably a little bit darker under here than elsewhere, it'll help brighten the place up, especially once we have a lantern hung somewhere like on the corner here. And then for this part of the house, I am thinking, ooh, you know what? No, I'm not going to leave the limestone on the outside because that's sort of too samey with this part over here. So I think we're going to go with my original idea, which is to replace the outside of this with chert bricks. It may be a bit of chert rock, kind of interspersed a little bit. But then on the corner here, we're going to have a bracing with some more fire clay bricks. So we'll have sort of this color set going on here, like this. And then inside our rooms, on our very dark floors, we will have some bright marble-topped tables, but we're not going to be seeing much of the tops because we're going to put down glass cases. So we'll get this sort of nice bright color poking out, but it won't be overwhelming in the room here. And these cases are where we'll keep our butterflies. Once we have some. We don't have any yet. And I am thinking that these will probably be lining all of the walls along here. And I might also, depending on how samey the floor looks, I might kind of replace the center of the floor with maybe some birch, maybe some larch. I'm kind of leaning toward birch because the larch might be a bit too bright for this room's existing colors. Anyway, folks, that is the plan for this room. So I think we should buckle down and get to it. And I hope you enjoy my answers to your 20 questions. You've once again swamped me with questions, and I am de-swampifying my list and swampifying you guys with my answers to your questions. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the montage. All right, everyone, it is that time again. You know what that means. It is time for 20 questions. There's been a bit of a buildup of questions in my absence, well, the forced absence, and I think it's time for us to get through some, but not all these questions. I have about 7 pages saved up today, and we're going to get through about 4 of those pages. So kick back, and I hope you enjoy my answers to your questions. Our first question is from King Ragnar. Are you really a king? I don't know. King Ragnar asks, do greenhouses let you grow crops in winter? The best answer here is, it depends. If you live somewhere that gets below -5 in winter, then no. Your crops will still stop growing. But the greenhouse temperature boost may let your crops survive if they would otherwise die. But If you live somewhere warmer and you just need that little extra temperature boost to keep your rice or pineapples growing, then yes. Ryuga asks, do you think you would play The Long Dark, either as a guide series or just a normal Let's Play? As much as I enjoy the survival aspect of Vintage Story, I'm not really a big fan of super hardcore survival experiences where that's the main game loop. Vintage Story has a ton of building and exploration. The Long Dark looks fun, but since it deletes your save every time you die, I'm not sure it's suited for Let's Plays because y'all'd be watching me struggle through the early parts of the game several times most likely. JP asks, what do you think of the modding scene in Vintage Story? Are there non-quality of life mods you'd like to try in a new series? I think modding in Vintage Story is in a pretty good place right now. It's still growing and has a ways to mature, but so does the game. We are still in early access after all. As for bigger mods I'd like to mess around with in a non-guide series, I want to try out From Golden Combs, Better Ruins, and a whole bunch of other mods that really change the game, just to see if I enjoy the experience. Pineberry212 asks, what kinds of things do you write, and what hoops do we need to jump through to read them? I write mostly high fantasy, but the only book I've published is a combination of high fantasy and non-fiction. I wrote it a number of years ago because at the time, a lot of people were asking me what it was like to play Dungeons & Dragons. So I chronicled a D&D game from start to finish, with the majority of the book being written like a fantasy novel, from the perspectives of the characters, but every so often, when something outrageous or out of character happens, due to the fickle nature of the dice, I would pull the story back into the real world with a brief real-life discussion about why things happened the way they did. I've probably already outed myself for anyone with enough internet sleuthing abilities, but I'm still a bit shy about a name reveal, so if it is something you're interested in, send me a message over on Discord and we can DM about it. That aside, I've been sitting on a finished manuscript for a novel about assassination and political intrigue, told primarily from the perspective of people affected by and investigating the assassin, who can seemingly control the very shadows he hides in. I'm currently working on a novel set in a different world about a young woman who is unexpectedly offered the ability to harness a dragon's power and even take its shape. She and 5 others with similar powers seek to protect their country and find a means of ending a seemingly eternal war with the other dragons in the world. Rivi asks, in Vintage Story, if you plant a lot of trees near your house, does it actually become a forest with bears and wolves spawning? No, the areas that count as forest are set at the beginning of the world, and are thus immutable once a chunk has been generated. This does mean that if you want to live in the forest but aren't a fan of the noisy and violent neighbors, you can plant your own forest and live there peacefully. Oak Tree asks, I noticed that the Joy of Sailing mod is in the list for the guide series. Is there a plan to do a build for a boathouse and sailing expedition on a lake as an episode? I definitely want to at least try out the sailboats from the mod, although since the rafts have recently gotten a 33% speed boost, I do hope the sailboats provide more of a bonus than that. Since we have ocean set to 0%, I don't think we'll get the most mileage out of them, but it would be nice, especially if there are long trips and we can just carry our sailboat under our arm. If we end up using the boat a lot in a particular place near water, I think a boathouse could be warranted. Don Zeke has 2 questions. They ask, do you like camping and wilderness survival in real life? Yes and no. I do enjoy going out camping, or at least to places with no cell signal or internet and just vibing. Hardcore survival and living off the land aren't really my thing though. I do like to learn about it, but it's more of an academic interest than anything. I did spend most of my teenage years in Boy Scouts, and I used to go camping with my family on occasion, so I could handle a couple days or a week in the wilderness with proper preparation. But I'd rather go camping, or glamping I guess, somewhere where I could at least take a laptop and do some writing or other creative endeavor. Don Zeke's second question is, are you prepared to survive alone in the wild in the event of getting lost, or maybe, just maybe, a zombie invasion? I used to keep some survival gear in my car, but the reality is I live in the suburbs and pretty much never go anywhere that I might get lost or not be able to get help using my phone or from someone else. A zombie invasion? I'd be dead in a minute. My house is not zombie ready. There's a decent choke point on the stairs for dealing with them, but we'd be locked away from the kitchen, and the only food we have is the cereal I have to hide in my office, so my wife doesn't eat it all. Kyle Lee Hoofnagel asks, when you started playing Vintage Story, had you played Terraformercraft? I think I dabbled in Terraformercraft a tiny bit, when one of my friends recommended it to me as a mod in that other block game back in the Dark Ages. I think it was still relatively early in development, and I'm pretty sure it was only for an ancient version of that other block game. At the time, I was expecting something really different and ended up quickly being turned off by it, so I only played around with it for maybe an hour or two at most. Even one of my more hardcore block game friends, who loves pretty much every single mod ever created, couldn't get into TFC. Our next question is from Necromundi. Are you considering making content for Hytale when it comes out? At the moment, I don't really have any plans, but then again, I don't plan very far ahead for the channel, since the gaming scene can change pretty dramatically from month to month. If we're looking for another block game by the time Hytale comes out in the year 2071, and it's well reviewed, then sure, I'll probably add it to the list for consideration. Girish Manjanath asks, have you played Hardspace Shipbreaker? I haven't. I have played a ton of Space Engineers between 2015 and 2019, but never tried Hardspace. I did watch Captain Shack's Space Engineers Hard Space series for as long as it ran. I do wish it went on longer, but I think it's pretty well done now. President John F. Kennedy, the real one, definitely, asks, what is something you'd love to do, but that people wouldn't really pick up on immediately? I think the biggest surprise hobby of mine, to myself included, is cooking. Growing up, I didn't really get a chance to cook. My mother was the house's only chef, except for the grill, that was Dad's domain. And I didn't really have a need to cook, so I wasn't really interested. After I moved out of the house, though, cooking became a necessity when I wanted to eat well, enjoy what I ate, and not break the bank. Eventually I started enjoying the actual cooking process. It's a time for me to decompress, think about something other than work, and have a glass of wine or something while I dice, simmer, and season. Draconis1 asks, have you heard of the game Rising World? Is it something you make a series about? I've seen Rising World pop up on my Steam feed every now and then. It looks neat, but I want to see where the developer is going with it. If the end goal is to be just a survival sandbox, I don't think it'll be a game that will capture my attention for very long. If there's something more to it, like story elements or even just sandbox role-playing interactions with interesting NPCs, then it might be something I'd look at. Chaba Tai asks, how do you feel about being a vintage story guy or indie games guy, and the viewership differences between vintage story and the other block game? Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about being a vintage story channel. It wasn't what I set out to be. Long ago, I thought I'd be a Space Engineers or RimWorld channel, or just a general gaming channel, but my vintage story content is what has caught people's eye, and since I built an audience, that's you guys, who want to watch vintage story, my other content doesn't tend to fare as well. I think at some point, especially if vintage story development slows down or stops, I may need to take a break. There are only so many times I can talk about the same mechanics over and over again before it becomes repetitive, but at least for the next few years, I suspect vintage story will be something I come back to again and again. As for viewership differences, I'd be lying if I said I didn't wish people paid more attention to vintage story, but even for myself, it took about 4 months of YouTube pushing vintage story content on me due to my consumption of other block game content before I finally gave in and watched Paul Soares Jr.'s Vintage Story Let's Play. So I wouldn't be too surprised if other people also looked at Vintage Story and thought it looked just like another knockoff of the other block game. Wired Man asks, would Vintage Story be more challenging if crops were nerfed again? I've been playing since the 1.13 days, so I think I have a feel for how that would go. I think it would be less of a challenge and just more tedium. It might make it difficult for first-time players, which might drive some people away from the game, but those who stick with it or who are already used to the tedium might not mind, we just wouldn't care. I don't think it would work well though, because it might end up being kind of a gatekeeping thing and keep people away from the game. Gubo Jr. asks, what is a book or a series of books that you love? I mostly read fantasy, so most of my favorite authors are fantasy authors, but one series I come back to every few years is Jim Butcher's Dresden Files. They are just a ton of fun and easy to consume. Lucas Pazzi 4 Mile asks, what microphone do you use for recording? Since I game on the couch, I use a headset since I can't mount a microphone anywhere that my toddler couldn't reach and damage or destroy. So right now I'm using a Sennheiser PC37X headset, but I am upgrading soon to an Audio-Technica ATH M50 by STS USB headset, which should give better overall audio quality and some better sound isolation. as well as being more consistent due to not going through the PC's audio processor. Our last question is from Lenides1. What kind of weapons, shields, and armor would you recommend in each tech tier for a commoner class character with the class exclusives turned on? Well, the best that you can get, of course, is to turn the class exclusive recipes off. Okay, but that's not the answer you're looking for, I'll wager. That being said, the fallback options are still pretty fine. For the early game, you're looking at wicker shields, leather armor, a simple bow, and spears and falcons of whatever metal tier you can afford. As you progress into the Bronze Age, you will still have access to make regular gambeson armor. It just isn't quite as good as the tailored gambeson. It has a sound effect that I find annoying. I think the best shields you can make are Bronze Age shields. The higher tier metals offer the exact same protection, and only slightly more durability. Once you get into the Iron Age and above, the options are all pretty similar. You can purchase and fix up the Forlorn Hope and the Blackguard armor sets, or make iron and steel plate armor. I'd still stick with the bronze shields, and you can either buy a Forlorn Hope S-Stock, or just make iron or steel falxes. There are also gold and silver falxes which you can buy or make, but they are just more expensive reskinned steel falxes which also require silver or gold. Alright everyone, that wraps up our 20 questions segment for the episode. I hope you enjoyed my answers to your questions, and if you've already asked a question and didn't hear your answer, don't worry, I have it in a file, ready and staged for possibly the next episode that we do 20 questions. And if I get a lot more in the intervening time, then it might be a couple more 20 question segments before we get around to it. But don't worry, I log every question that comes in, and I notify you when I do. Anyway, it looks like we're about to wrap up the build here, so let's get back to what's going on. Alright everyone, we are back from our little montage. I hope you enjoyed my answers to your questions, and I hope you enjoyed the build along the way. There is one last thing that I want to do, and that is I want to get started on something out here. Nope, don't destroy the doors. That is, I want to start... Oops, don't need you. I want to start setting up our paths out here. And for that, we're going to need to do a bit of this. Get these here. Cut away. And I kind of goofed right there, so we're going to go and grab another piece of this and set you back down. There we go. We're going to have some paths leading right up to our door. And some stairs right here. Oops. And there we go. Eventually, this will be a little part of the path around here. I was going to put the door up at this level, like I have the other doors, but I thought this could be interesting if it was different. So we have a nice little sort of dark passageway here, step down into our butterfly room. The Leopard-Doctor-Octopus room. That's right. Let's take a look starting from the outside. I'm going to clear my inventory here, my hotbar. There we go. So we do have a circular door frame in and out of the room from the hallway, and I think we're going to skip putting a door on this one because this way we can actually do a whole circle right here. And I don't think this room really needs a door. It's not essential, as in it's not a bedroom, it's not a kitchen, so we're unlikely to need to lock ourselves away in here from drifters or things chasing us in our house, like Bert. So we have our door frame here, we have our pine log threshold as usual. And you come in and you have the dark aged wooden slab floors with the central birch slabs leading from the hallway entry to the exit door out into the, well, what will be the underpass thingamajigger. I thought it would be fun to bring a bit of the sky into this room, and so I went for this andesite band around here. And I know there's a word for it when you have a piece of wallpaper that goes the whole way around a room. Just like this, and I don't recall what it was. I do recall taking off a lot of it from my house when I moved in here. But then we have our 14 tables lining each side here, and we have our 14 display cases up against the wall. And I guess I didn't need to fret too much about what I put here because you're not going to see much of that sort of lower section of wall. So I kind of agonized over it for a little bit, but oops, silly me. And I went for something a bit different with the windows here. I wanted to see if we could make the redwood work here, and I think it works. I like it against the fire clay bricks. Again, my one wish is that we had access to acacia wood right now, because I would come through in a heartbeat and replace all this redwood with acacia, but I think it works pretty well. And it sort of keeps the same shape as these windows here, but with a different bit of a flair. Speaking of these windows over here, though, we now have chert brick on the outside of this section of the house. I decided against using some of the chert rock here, just to keep it consistent, and because I didn't want it to get it too noisy in here, since we already have the fire clay bricks and we have the bricks around here, I thought that another texture might just be a little too busy. So I skipped that, and wow, look at that. One little bit of snow on that brick. Wild. Oh, because the top has some. Interesting. And then right outside here along the bottom, I thought it would be nice to have a different color, even if it's only slightly different, and so we have the light mud brick blocks down here chiseled in with the oak on the opposite side, right in here. Lastly, of course, we have our tin bronze lanterns, a nice sort of golden color to cast light into the room. We have our oak crown molding and a nice bright limestone ceiling. And that reminds me, a couple of you suggested something that I think would be fun for some of these roofs here, these ceilings, would be to just kind of do a little bit of a tiny, tiny arch in here. Just like this. Maybe even a little bit more. Yeah, I like that actually. That's pretty nice. We could even do that in here for a little bit more roof or ceiling over our heads. Do we do that? Sure. Sure, why not? But yes, I think that is a fun little addition just to bring a little more height into the room. And we're getting really thin on this limestone here. But that is that for our butterfly room. Now, you'll notice that right now this is not a butterfly room. It is a room because there are exactly, let me count, yep, that's right. There are 0 butterflies in here. Now, we can rectify that with a butterfly net. Assuming I have the materials we need. Yes, some flax right here. We need some cloth. Let's make 2, why not? We'll have 1 for decoration and 1 to actually use. And to make a butterfly net, you do what I do and open up the handbook, and it looks like it's pretty simple. So we need 2 sticks, 1 cloth, and 1 set of nails and strips per bug net. And they don't stack because they are tools. But check it out. We have butterfly nets, so we can catch butterflies. Now, unfortunately, butterflies, when you catch them, they always die. You can't catch them and then put them in a jar or anything and keep them alive. At least not in vanilla. I don't know if there are mods out there that let you keep your butterflies alive. But in vanilla, there are no live butterflies that you can collect. There are only dead ones, and they go into cases. There's also a second bit of unfortunate news, is that, if you haven't noticed, it's winter. And that means that butterflies are not out here flitting about and doing their thing. So, yeah. So, this is going to have to be a room for a little while longer. I think sometime in spring we'll need to have a dedicated, or if not dedicated, then an exploration episode with a lot of butterfly catching. And we will start filling up this room with all of the specimens that we get. Now, I don't know how many there are in the game, and I know you can check in the creative menu, I just don't know off the top of my head. But I'm pretty sure that we will probably pretty quickly fill up most of these. I think there's, 18 gazillion butterfly types? I'm not sure. So, if we run out of room in here, we could put a couple more cables right in the center, like these 6 here. That would give us 24 more spots. And it would kind of crunch the room a little bit, but it's a butterfly room. It's supposed to be kind of cozy, right? So, yeah, once spring rolls around, maybe even summer and fall, we can go out and catch us some butterflies and fill up our butterfly room. And of course, the butterfly nets are actually invisibility cloaks because they let you see right through yourself. Look at that. Ooh, spooky. Anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoyed the build and my answers to your 20 questions. As promised, in the next episode, I think I want to focus on getting the hallway in the main part of the house and at least a good chunk of our cellar done. It's going to be hallways and utility rooms episode. And we'll probably start finishing up the back door as well and getting that all settled. I might even try to roof in the hallway just so we can walk around without having to trip over snow everywhere because it gets old. And we should be pretty soon approaching springtime here in at least a couple episodes. And once spring rolls around, we're going to put another pause on the home building stuff and go on a couple big adventures. I have a couple wild ones in mind, one of which might take us very, very far away from home. And that might also include a bit of an experiment. We'll have to see. As always, my name has been Kurazar. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.